Hello. So, I'm going to go over a few different topics as per usual, correct? As far as my official YouTube channel, go to my website www.susanmeeling.com. So, what would my colors have to do with anything, huh? Now, what colors would these be in reference to? Huh? For those who know, they are my scuba diving colors. Absolutely, black and white were definitely my choice for scuba diving colors. My fins were white. All of my accessories were pretty much white. My wetsuit, Farmer John wetsuit, was black. It was a two-piece wetsuit. My snorkel was white. The only thing that really wasn't white or black was my Ladybug neoprene head cover, because I figured, if you see my Ladybug neoprene head cover, you would see, the little antennae, but up here, I was doing what I could to make it more simple for those who I could be partnered with to be capable to see me underwater, because of, knowing that my type of scuba diving compared to when recreationally scuba diving would be much easier to see that. The white fins would always be capable of being seen, and my white snorkel always being capable of being seen, no matter what atmospheric measurement. Now, granted, the red and black neoprene head cover, that after the first atmospheric measurement, maybe second atmospheric measurement, possibly would not be capable of seeing it, except for the fact that there were the little antennae and they were a bright green. So I figured that at minimum would be a reminder as to my little wispies. I didn't think it was, that advanced, but I thought it was important, so that way it would be easy for people who would be in a scuba diving situation with me to instantly recognize. Now, ironically, I have my tattoos, as you can see. Now, I did do some modeling, mainly under the name of Lady Doribelle, but I was also known, and still am known more so, as Susan Meeling. Now, granted, okay, some more so online would recognize the name Lady Doribelle, possibly, compared to the name Susan Meeling. Either way, I'm still the same person. And then there's my tattoos, and they are extremely specifically placed. Now, anybody who knows anything about human anatomy understands that as you grow older, your body changes. Whether that is your height, your width, your girth, even if you wear a corset, or even various, facial feature changes. If you gain a lot of weight and then lose some weight, you will have that same sort of factor in comparison, similarly to your stomach. And so then there's the aging process and all that. What usually does not change unless you go to have it removed, or over a length of time, your tattoos. Now, I've made sure to keep my tattoos. I have my reasons for them. And so I had explained to people, specifically from the years of 2009 through 2012, that my main purpose as far as getting into modeling had been to be capable of recognizing myself, because I was concerned after certain situations that something could happen. And I wanted, and I know that this is probably gruesome in certain regards, but when you take into consideration, I was born and raised in New Jersey in the 1980s and 1990s. If dealt with a few things as far as sights are concerned. And then there's the facts of my children's biological father and that whole CID situation where that whole laptop. Yeah, those pictures and all that, and so, I was concerned, mainly because of how certain situations were before my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000 during basic training. Certain other situations were of a concern regarding when the first separation as well as the second separation occurred, which was the final separation from my children's biological father. I was extremely concerned because of a lot of circumstances. My biological mother and biological father and biological sister had already proven certain factors, and I was concerned for my son's safety, my daughter's safety, and my safety. And so while people who I once knew thought that my tattoos were just a fad, that my hairstyle was just a fad in comparison to what ironically they had complained about, which one of the things that they had complained about was how repetitive I had been, that they acknowledged similarly to my biological mother, biological father, and biological sister, to having sent people to me to test me in reference to what I would discuss. Because for whatever excuse they had, they thought that they were gonna, I don't even know, because it depends on the different individual regarding that. And so in comparison to just asking me outright whatever it was that they were seeking to try to maneuver in certain regards, they got frustrated because they got the exact same answers every time. And so all of these people who complained were asking the same questions in varying words and getting the exact same responses. And they were getting mad at me because I was telling the truth. Go figure. Who would have thought that you could get in trouble and annoy people by telling the truth? Which the irony is that they were annoyed more so at the fact that I had explained my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. The way it occurred in reference to the drill sergeant and the smoke session, for those who understand that reference. The time in reference to leading up until that point of the smoke session, the 45 minutes as far as the clock and all that sort of stuff. But then people didn't believe that my tattoos could ever assist me. They thought it was a joke. They thought whatever they thought as far as all these different situations in comparison to taking into consideration that I could possibly hypothetically just be telling the truth. Same thing in regards of scuba diving. These individuals, they tried to say, well, with scuba diving, why would you get tattoos? Because, in scuba diving, you have your wetsuit. Well, my tattoos weren't for when I was scuba diving. My 26 scuba diving certifications, that was the equivalent of. But apparently that was too advanced, irony of irony, in reference to the scuba diving instructors and scuba divers in the recreational civilian sector. And so it's irony when you take into consideration how many extra tattoos I had to get in regards of specifically the Cozumel or Cancun scuba dive and the civilian recreational scuba divers that were instructors during that particular point in time. And in front of these instructors, going and landing at the bottom of the ocean during the shoreline 2 different scuba dives, the 2 daytime scuba dives both times, as well as the 1 night 2-time scuba dive. In front of them, waving from the bottom of the ocean and them waving back at me. And that's one example of 8 different scuba dives where a minimum of 2 different scuba dive instructors knew that I was doing that, waving at them. By that time, I was earning my 24th and 25th scuba diving certification, mind you. However, then there's the Boca Raton scuba dive, where both times I landed at the bottom of the ocean out from Boca Raton and taking pictures, in between what I could take care of. And so then there's the Vandenberg scuba dive, where I landed at the bottom of the ocean for one of the scuba dives. And that was I will say, that was actually at the bottom of the ocean because of the Bermuda Triangle involved with that, as well as the abyss and the trenches of the abyss out there. So you have a whole bunch of situations. Those who have gone to the Montana Vortex, you have an idea on land in reference to the Bermuda Triangle and scuba diving in comparison. But you have to take every individual aspect of the Montana Vortex and combine it into one, not the individual situations, for a little bit better of an understanding in the difference between some people's type of scuba diving and then my work. And so, I had done a lot of training over the years, and this was leading up to, well before I had been moved from New Jersey to Illinois. So by the time, if you go to my website, www.susanmealing.com, and you go into the book section of one of the book series of all of them that I had authored and compiled together, there's one called The Adventures of Susan Mealing, Scuba Diver Extraordinaire, written by me, Reverend Susan Mealing. Now, if you look in the bibliography, you can also, in reference to the books themselves, but if you go and you look in the book section, you can see all of the books that I authored and compiled together regarding one particular book. And so, even though I have my first legal name and my legal middle name regarding Susan Mealing, that bibliography, regarding my scuba diving certifications for my legal government last name. You can go to Finding a Silver Lining. I explain that in a larger amount of detail. Apparently, maybe I'm the only female scuba diver who ever dealt with certain situations such as that. And maybe that is the problem, and or for those who may not have been capable to put that together on their own without me explaining it, maybe if they haven't themselves had to deal with it, maybe they just don't know anybody who could have ever dealt with anything such as that. Or maybe they're one of those similar to my children's biological father, or they're completely oblivious to that sort of stuff, the way my biological mother, biological father, and biological sister pretended to be, and the same in reference to my ex-in-laws pretending to be oblivious to that. Then there are those who are just honest and, disavow that type of individual, because, that's the rare type. Apparently, I've rarely met someone who has known of a situation that willingly disavowed someone such as my children's biological father in reference to that type. And that includes in reference to the Dress Blue situation, because people have an issue in that regard. I don't know why. There are those who don't have an issue and who have the capability to take the stand, and literally and figuratively regarding that. However, stand for something and fall for nothing. And I decided to take a stand quite a few times in my life. So, in reference to my modeling, yeah, I did have the modeling pictures in reference to my work. And yes, for the most part, yeah, there's a lot of corset modeling pictures, not only those though. Um, that is a reality. And what I was focused on in comparison to others depends on what your view had been. And so I had explained that the modeling I had done was for me to be capable to recognize myself in case anything occurred. Now, in 2022, and reviewing situations such as the modern day book written by me, Reverend Susan Mi Ling, on top of Finding A and Finding the Silver Lining, written by me, compiled by me, and another reference, Reverend Susan Mi Ling. Again, you can go to my website, www.susanmiling.com, to be capable to see what I'm referring to. Well, how could I recognize myself in those modeling pictures? Would that be in reference to my face? No. If there are those who have thought my face is okay, cool, awesome, thank you. I know that I have a face. I know that I have 2 eyes and a nose and a mouth and 2 ears, cheeks, forehead, a chin. I know that. I do. I just, I look as I do. I didn't grow up a certain way, so I know what I, look as in my face. But I also understand and comprehend the knowledge regarding biology and human anatomy. So that facial sort of stuff, over time, it stays the same. However, there is the aging process. Now, you can keep a youthful appearance. I don't know if I've gotten, if I've stayed exactly the same in reference to my facial features. That probably would be cognitive situations. Maybe I'm just as youthful looking, or I don't know. I really don't. I wasn't paying attention to that when looking at my modeling pictures. I was looking at the placement of my tattoos. So that way, if there was ever a circumstance, such as some community situations regarding the state of Texas, because of what I was dealing with, which, whether you take in consideration of scuba diving and those aspects, or McCoy Elementary School in Carrollton, Texas, of Carrollton Farmers Branch Independent School District, and those situations with the Fort Worth Sioux, or my ex-in-laws, or my biological mother, biological father, biological sister, in those situations, or because, there is the modeling aspect, that set of situations where I just, I just lived my own life, took care of what I needed to take care of as best as I could. And knowing that it's a competitive field, but not in it for those same exact reasons. Which I explained, but, there are those who have, there are those who understand, possibly more so now than before, 10 Commandments. Actually have followed those. So there were several situations that I had explained over the years, and the placement of my tattoos. Well, they don't move. They don't change. That's the reality. And I wasn't ever going to have them removed because I needed them, because they weren't a fad. They weren't for any public reason. They were for my own aspect. And then in the just in case that situation that I was concerned about ever did, people, if they knew me and if they actually cared about me and valued our in-person, face-to-face, in-person acquaintanceship, friendship, chosen family sort of thing, and or relationship, they would not hesitate to speak with me in truth, if that was the case. Because they would remember the after effects of my head injury that they got annoyed by, as far as the repetitiveness. And being the state of Texas, where I woke up from my coma and had been in various communities, if there was the genuine care and if there was the genuine appreciation of how I had been genuine and truthful in regards of whether an acquaintance or whether a friend or whether a chosen family or whether a relationship, there would be the automatic truth because of knowing. Because I could see now, once again in 2022, during the review from 2019 into 2020 and 2021, that if there were those who realized I was in Washington State, that knew me in person, face to face in person, whether, my biological aspect, my ex-in-law aspect, scuba diving, the stay-at-home moms group, the San Antonio pagan community, I already said scuba diving, the supposed to be adult consenting lifestyle communities throughout the state of Texas. Now, I don't actually have any way to confirm one way or another personally as to whether in person, when I was in Washington State, during my Medal of Honor art project trips or anything like that, I have no verifiable way to clarify whether or not someone or people that I once knew in person, face to face, in person, ever spoke with me. Because if they did and they were honest and were not playing a game and were genuinely concerned about me and my safety, after having explained those aspects, and actually believed me in regards to the after effects of my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000, and or had known anything in regards of scuba diving, those 9 or 10 times that I landed at the bottom of the ocean at depth levels, differing, of course, of atmospheric measurements. And yes, atmospheric measurements. It was a military depth gauge computer, which measured in atmospheric measurements, or it might have measured in fathoms. I can't remember if it measured in fathoms, but I do know that there was the atmospheric measurements for one of the digital programs, because those who know Sunto computers, specifically military depth gauge ones, you have the capability to review it either in atmospheric measurements or fathoms. My mistake if I had it programmed in fathoms in comparison to atmospheric measurements. That goes, I acknowledge that's my fault because I was taught in atmospheric measurements. And so that digital computer portion of the depth gauge computer, my mistake if it was actually programmed in fathoms, and those numbers that I put together in reference to what I could remember, which in 2019 and 2020 CID would be capable to know whether or not from that Sergeant Baber situation as to memory accuracy. And so if that just so happens to be my mistake in reference to atmospheric measurements compared to fathoms, I do apologize. I was going through a few things and I was doing the best I could. But then again, especially in reference to the Vandenberg, my mistake, it's also in the Bermuda Triangle, and there were a few things I was taking care of during that time frame. And, while I understand from the knowledge it's a self-contained underwater breathing apparatus, I didn't realize that there'd be so many selfish aspects in comparison to, it's supposed to be a community, and that whole, you're supposed to have a dive partner. I mean, especially after what I was told when I first started scuba diving, you'd think that there wouldn't be a hesitation in that reference, but then again, maybe that's my fault for thinking. I don't know. Anyway, so in reference to those situations, I would think, in regards of the review starting in 2019 to 2020 and 2021, this year in 2022, if there were those who I once knew that actually had taken me seriously back when I knew them in person, face to face in person, that they wouldn't hesitate if there was the genuine care. There wouldn't be any further tests if there was the genuine care and concern. There wouldn't be any need for any additional problems, because if there was the genuine care and concern with the actual belief that I had been telling the truth, then there would not have been a hesitation to speak with me in truth. Because again, in the state of Texas, what is the veteran population in the state of Texas? There's the Center for the Intrepid in Military City, USA. It is known as San Antonio, Texas, but at Fort Sam Houston, that base that I woke up at, that whole thing, that medical hold unit that's now Warrior Transition Unit, that place, yeah, that's where I woke up. And so maybe there's a few people who have had a head injury and or a coma who could have some people, or maybe there's somebody who knows someone. Now, back in the time frame of, the Desert Storm, as well as the Korean and Vietnam War and World War I and World War II, they called it shell shock or head injury-ish, depending. More recently, they've called it a TBI or traumatic brain injury. Now, I had a subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of my brain after my head injury or TBI or however you want to label it during basic training. And so those people that I had once known in person, face-to-face in person in the state of Texas, who complained about my repetition, even though the irony is they were the one who had asked it. I didn't start out meeting people and going, "Hi, my name is," and I had a head injury. That's not how that began. Usually what occurred, if I had known someone beforehand, they'd speak with me and then they'd say, "Do you remember whatever?" And then I'd apologize most likely and say, "Well, I'm going to guesstimate. I don't really know, but I'm going to guesstimate that occurred." But what I do remember is that at some point in time they would get angry because I would repeat what they had already done before. That's my main memory in reference to quite a few individuals. Their specific names, I can't give you that because it just happened that many times and in that many events throughout San Antonio, Austin, San Marcos, and DFW. So I dealt with it so many times that, they just kind of blended together. It was just nothing new to me. It was commonplace for me to deal with, especially from 2009 through 2012. It was just common. That's how accustomed to it I had gotten from the year of 2000 to 2009. That's how much I had already dealt with it by that point. So by the time of 2009 through 2012, it was like, well, I've kind of dealt with this a few years. So if you're going to get mad at me because I'm telling you the truth, all right, go ahead. If you want to be over dramatic and get mad because I'm telling you the truth and you're mad because of whatever your whatever is, I've kind of been dealing with this for a few years. So why don't you actually get mad at the reasons why instead? Because I'm not the only person who's dealt with a head injury. I'm not the only person who deals with the after effects of one. You should probably, prioritize those details. Yeah, you probably should. And take into consideration quite a few different concerns. Like for one particular situation, if you've done this more than once to me, why don't you evaluate yourself as a human being? Why don't you think about what you yourself have done, where you have actually been beneficial to humanity? And what type of friend or acquaintance or relationship or family member you are. Why don't you go and evaluate yourself on that? Because, that 10 commandments and then do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. Because remember, you can't always prevent a head injury. Sure, it's not every day that somebody has a drill sergeant do what occurred as I had dealt with during basic training, but head injuries happen all the time. There's different ways that occurs, and so, unless you have some sort of way to guarantee that you won't ever have that problem, you should probably evaluate who you are. Think about that and see whether or not you should think about that some more. Because I wouldn't do any of what has been done to me on purpose knowingly to another. I cannot say the same, obviously, but it is what it is. Nonetheless, if you have some sort of magic way to prevent that from occurring to you and or someone you care about, well, that's cool. Yeah, that'd be pretty awesome. But if you cannot prevent it from happening to yourself or someone you care about, you should probably take that in consideration. I can't tell you what to do, but there is that reality. Because if I am accurate in regards of my journal blog on my website, www.susankneeling.com, and or the modern day book written by me, Reverend Susan Kneeling, and there was even one person, maybe two, maybe a couple, who, whether in reference to my Medal of Honor art project trips, and or when I was in Washington State, and or how I got there. Did you get what you were looking for? Did you get those answers? Did you prove that I had been telling the truth about the after effects of my head injury? Or did you still think it's a fad regarding my tattoos and my hairstyle? Did you stir up enough drama that those situations proved themselves? Or am I inaccurate in that? And if I'm inaccurate, well, then I apologize. If I'm inaccurate and that had nothing to do with how I wound up in Washington State, and or the different situations before I wound up in Washington State because of that Stoney LaRue concert, March of 2013 to be specific, at the Cowboys Dance Hall, where similar to Excalibur Fair, instead of 5 males jumping out of trees when walking around the Excalibur Fair, at the Stoney LaRue concert at the Cowboys Dance Hall, 6 people. So instead of 5, it was 6. And instead of jumping out of trees, they came out of the dance club and didn't leave me alone the whole time. It is what it is. But here's instead of it being 5 males, it was 3 females and 3 males. I don't know if that actually makes it better or not. Probably not, but one of the females had one of those plastic boot casts on one of her legs, longer hair to about here, dark brown, and then there was the dirty blonde, and then the lighter brunette-ish as far as females were concerned. There's the male as far as how winding up in Washington State, which is an irony to the Aquarina Hot Springs during my National Geographic open water scuba diving certification, as far as a Carhartt jacket. And then Kevin was taller and had shorter hair, about similar length in reference to Washington State, but darker brown-ish, maybe chocolate brown, and maybe about 6 foot, 5'9", 5'8", probably about 170-ish in pounds. And then the other male, who was just a few inches taller than me, longer hair than mine, and a beard, and broader shoulders, and fairly muscular. So, I mean, that's all. That's it. What's considered normal about that? Anybody that could leave a comment in reference to the official YouTube channel about that. But yeah, again, going in reference to those who just failed to see that I had told the truth, it would have been easier to just ask me. But that's, again, if anybody had known and actually believed me, because those who would have believed me, in my opinion, looking back now, once again in 2022, would have just asked me. They would have said something, I would guesstimate, something such as, I recognize certain attributes about you, or you look familiar, or something along those lines, and give me a specific location, such as, which city in the state of Texas, which year, something that would be tangible, in comparison to, because I've done a lot of modeling. Well, she wore a outfit. That's the equivalent of me looking at my face, and I got 2 eyes, and I got a nose, and I got a mouth, and I got forehead and cheeks and a chin. Yeah, I got 2 ears, and I got some hair on my head. I got eyebrows. I do. Sometimes I wear makeup. I do. And yes, I'm being sarcastic, but at the same time being truthful. That's like saying right now, maybe similar to some other outfits, I wore some heels. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know. It could happen. It could be a thing for certain outfits. Or maybe I wore a tutu. Oh wait. Look, I'm doing both. I got all three. All three. I got heels, I got a tutu, and a corset. Oh, four, because I got makeup on. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, but got my hair. Nonetheless, yeah, looking back now, it's one of those, well, if that was the case, it would have been fairly simple. But that's also if I was believed. That's also if there was a genuine care and concern. There is that. Because, when I ask someone, how are you doing? Especially in a discussion. And not that I don't care when it comes to technology versions, it's very non-personal to me. Mainly because I had grown up in the coding sector. So while for some people, text messages can be considered personal, and they can, there's no denying it, but short in comparison to long, I have a problem connecting that way. I can connect during phone calls. I can connect in lengthy text messages, but I cannot connect in short, because the responses being in short is exactly that. That's the type of connection that I view it as. And it's literally viewing when you really take that in consideration in comparison to reviewing in regards of discussions. And so I would guesstimate, like most other human beings, where, interpersonal connections, they have to fit in a certain way. So if you don't have the capability, such as currently with the social distancing situation, without those lengthy discussions, there's just that lack of social connection where it's not as personal. It's not to that same level. I would guess. I don't know. I'm different. I acknowledge that. But I've been this way since I was a child and a teenager, and admittedly after waking up from my head injury coma. And so, since 2000, the longer amount of time, the more of a connection there is. And when it's a shorter amount of time, or it's in brief in comparison, and yes, brief is relative depends on how that viewpoint is. So, in reference to in Washington State, well, if I didn't see you on a weekly basis, especially in Washington State, with none of the plant life as a backdrop, maybe I don't know, depending on where spoken with, if that's the case, whether during my Medal of Honor art project trips and or just overall in regards of Washington State, if the background was exactly the same as in the state of Texas, well then yeah, maybe. I don't know. How do other people who have survived a head injury and the after effects of, how have they been outside of those areas? And if the backgrounds are different. I don't know. That would be something that each person that would know someone could answer in comparison. So, I would guess, looking back now, again in the year of 2022, if the backdrop was exactly the same, then I probably shouldn't have had an issue. But then there is that factor of the human anatomy and biology. So as long as your face did not change in the slightest at all, not one wrinkle, not one gray hair, not one change in color of your hair either. Length of hair, how you styled it, your clothing, because the after effects of my head injury. So you would have to look exactly the same to a T. There couldn't be one hair out of place or a different shade of color. You couldn't be wearing different clothing than the last time I saw you in person, face to face in person, for me, in my guess, to on the spot. It's similar to a nightclub I had been to recently where I had seen these two people. I was outside in the smoking section. Those who know me in person, face to face in person, you know how this is. And these two people, they were at different parts of the smoking section. One turns around at the same time the other one turns around, and one says, "Oh, are you so-and-so?" And the other one's, "Yes, oh, it's been forever." And they get all excited and give each other hugs and awesome, and they go and reconnect, and that was great to see. So, I don't know whether or not either one of them have had a head injury. Probably not by the way they recognized one another. But if one of them did have a head injury and it just so happens to have been the one that was approached in comparison to the one that did the approaching, that would make sense that the one who would have been approached by the one who was approaching would be the one who had the head injury, if there was, because why would the person who would approach have had a head injury? I don't know what this stereotype is for that, but I had there's an irony. I had the worst response in this one child book series. I actually cried reading it. I can't remember the author's name at all. But I had a vision, and so I actually cried. Irony right now. The title of the book is Are You My Mother? First time I read that, I broke down in tears because I had a vision and I refused to be in the room when my biological sister wanted to hear it read. I would go down the stairs. I would actually purposefully get in trouble so that way I could deal with my biological father being upset with me instead of listening to my biological mother read the words of that book to my biological sister. Which is an irony when you take in consideration 2022. At this point in time, if you see certain symbolism in that reference. So the irony for those who understand in reference to the military, on top of the supposed to be adult consenting lifestyle and scuba diving, to the colors black and white. And so there is a flag in the military of the United States of America in that regard, which, you know, however you take that in consideration is however you take that in consideration to those particular ironies. So there's one particular tattoo that I would guesstimate is probably, this is Methuselah. This was my first pet after I woke up from my coma. You know, after I was off of the military installation in the year of 2000, I got a ghost corn snake. This is not a tattoo of a picture of Methuselah himself, but a picture of what I could find to give to the tattoo artist at Cat Tattoo, who ironically had been in the Navy. And I was going through my scuba diving certifications at that time. And so, yeah, I was like, yeah, no, this is my pet Methuselah. Which later, it totally worked out when I was at a bar in San Antonio, Texas. I had gone to, and this waitress, she's a sweetheart. She, you know, I similarly, for those who know how I had been in Club Sapphire, more specifically, more recently, in regards of my protectiveness sort of stuff, is kind of similar, especially with this one in particular. There's a few situations which she probably didn't know about, but it probably made sense a little bit later in the night. And so this one particular evening, I'm there with a retired Mustang's daughter at a bar. This is not a joke, it's reality, but it is still funny because I told a joke, but it's still the truth. And so this guy, he starts talking smack to me. And he's all, you know, I'm so this and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, well, I didn't graduate basic training. So, you know, and he's like, yeah, I get that you didn't graduate basic training. Okay. And so he's going on and he's, you know, my dick is this big. And I'm like, oh yeah? Well, I got a snake that hangs lower on my leg than I bet your dick does. And his friends just, what? And the female at the time, the retired Mustang's daughter, is thinking I'm talking about strap-ons. And so at that time, I was wearing capri pants. So I had the capris right here. And the guy was like, whoa, whoa, what? So the Mustang's daughter is like, yeah, she's got this and this. Shut up about the trunk of my car. No, I was born and raised in New Jersey. Shut up. You don't say that. And she was like, what? No, you didn't. Because, you know, those who get that joke, those who understand that. I don't have anything in the trunk of my car, by the way. I don't do that. Anyway, that just, it is what it is. It is what it is. I mean, I do have stuff in the trunk of my car, just not the typical New Jersey stuff, okay? Okay. Although I can make a joke in reference to my Medal of Honor art project, but that is a whole different aspect. Fully, this is not the 1980s or 1990s, this is 2022, and that just doesn't make it any better. But it is an irony regarding that joke, sort of sarcastic aspect. Anyway, so I, you know, said, you know, you want me to show you? After I told you. And the guy's like, yeah, whatever. So I lift up my capri pants and I'm like, yep, see, that's my Pat Methuselah. And see, since he's coiled up right here, even if he were to stretch out, he would still hang lower on my leg than your dick. I don't need you to whip it out. It's okay. I know that. My snake is bigger than yours. It's okay. I'm okay with that. Can you accept that? Can you accept that reality? That guy apparently was really upset. Yeah, he got really mad. I don't know why. I don't know. I didn't get that explanation. When the bouncers came and grabbed that guy, I was standing there. Why'd they take him away? I wanted to know why he got upset. I don't know. I don't know what was wrong with him. It's true. If you were to measure this is like 23, 24, 25, maybe 28 inches. So, you know, if you have something that big, that's probably very frightening. I know it would frighten me. But this is a tattoo. That's not the same. Words. I'm a dork. I'm a huge dork. I took Greco-Roman Latin. I can't help it. I'm a nerd. And it's true. If I were to stretch them out, it would hang lower on my leg. I'm just saying. I don't care that I'm a dork. I'm fine with that. It's okay. Glitter. Nonetheless, you know, there are those that didn't necessarily take me seriously, and maybe it's because of the way I explain things, such as this official YouTube video. Now, in my defense, in scuba diving, just because my colors were black and white, I didn't dress like this when I was scuba diving. Although the irony actually is because I'd wear a one piece, I wouldn't wear a bikini. So I didn't wear heels though. I did wear booties, and they covered up to my ankle. I technically was wearing more clothing when I had my wetsuit on, but not when I was just wearing my one-piece bathing suit. Because then this would technically be more clothing than my one-piece bathing suit. Although, because I'd usually wear shorts, it's pretty similar because I wore mom shorts. So, maybe it's because there wasn't glitter. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe was that the problem, that I didn't have glitter in my mom shorts? You know? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But so in that regard, I did do what I could to make sure I assisted at minimum myself. So, you know, that self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. Self-contained under my capri pants or pants. Remembering apparati, because you know it's the dork way of the word apparatus, because it's not apparatuses. Just because I like that song, I want a hippopotamus for Christmas. I can make fun of myself. I have become quite a professional at it. It's pretty simple. Yeah, it's not self-deprecation. It's just making fun of myself while making sense. I told this guy at the Velvet Rope that the lifestyle needs to have some comedians or comedians. And he asked me if there was really anybody who could make fun of stuff regarding different situations in the lifestyle, and I said I could do it pretty simply. I can do it, and I could make fun of myself to begin with. But in turn, making fun of myself would mean making fun of others. And he was like, well, that's the best part. And he was a Marine, so, you know. Marines do tend to have a really twisted sense of humor, and I can make a joke about that because um, I have crossed my legs, and there's the twisting of that because of the view in comparison, because of my tattoos. I am the stork. I am the storky. I really am. I am the storky. Then when you add the fact that I have a vine on one of my legs and then Methuselah on the other, I can make fun of that because it's literally right there. And then when I cross my arms, then there's more twisting, which is what it is, which I can make another joke, which is still not a joke, it's still the truth. You know, there's my Latin tattoo. And then, you know, obviously a red-haired female. Kind of similar to that female on DJ Conway's Celtic Magic. I really wished I could have hair that way. And in Latin, it translates stand for something and fall for nothing. And how you choose to review that regarding scuba diving, as well as the time frame of 2011 when I was living in Irving, Texas, as far as this particular sleeve portion. I will leave that symbolism to that symbolism. But in reference of Irving, by the time of 2011, people were not believing me in reference to the after effects of my head injury by that point. There were scuba divers that I knew that were as they were in comparison. And instead of speaking with me in person, face to face in person, and just asking me or informing me of someone that they could recommend me speaking with, you know, honestly, instead. And then, you know, by the time of 2011, from 2009, who was I supposed to speak with, as I was in the process of working towards getting my gear to where I knew would have been best, which would have been Fort Sam Houston, which I was working on, but because of the situations I was dealing with at the time, there is a saying, too many cooks in a kitchen can cause problems, which is an irony. I could make a joke in reference to the lifestyle. There was a Thanksgiving dinner that I had, and you go there, and you go there, and you go there, and out. I will take care of this in part. I do not remember if I was wearing a tutu that day or night. I think the irony is I had feathers. So I can make a joke that I was the turkey that was spared. Only because as a child, I was this dork. I really was this dork as a child. And I really was. I was this dork, so my biological mother would randomly call me a turkey in front of people at Prudential. And because I was as I was, I went gobble gobble. Because I was making a joke as a child, because I don't have feathers. But I'll just go say gobble, gobble, because ha. Because I had that dry of a sense of humor. And that obviously did not change, but I can make the joke now in reference to if I was wearing a corset that had feathers for the Thanksgiving dinner, which would be irony of ironies. Yep, I am that dork. Yes, I am. I can make fun of myself that easily. I have plenty to work with. It's called myself. So you guys have a good day, night, afternoon, whatever it is in reference to the time you get to see and hear this. And go on my website, www.susanmealing.com. Check that sort of stuff out. And I'm gonna go on my merry little way. I think I've gone over a few different details in a few different ways. Quite a few. And you know, I mean, there is the reality of the colors. And surprise. What is the saying about the particular military aspect? Well, I did the best I could to remember. You guys have a good day. And Happy New Year.